Hello everyone. So today we are going to talk about security threats. In simple words, let me try to introduce it before we dive in. Security threat is kind of anything that can harm your computer, like your idea or your privacy. This topic is very important, mainly because security threats are not only technical problem; they are also very serious when it comes to humans' life. They affect people. They also affect information and affect organizations. So by the end of this lecture, you will be able to recognize common like threats and let me say understand also how we protect systems against them. Um, so here is what we are going to cover today. Like first, we'll start with a short introduction to security threats. Then we will talk about consequences of ignoring security. So in case you don't take care of it, what can happen? And so we'll discuss that different like security issues. And after that, we will look to at different types of threats and we mainly here we'll discuss from where they can come, like the unstructured sources, and at the end we will discuss about computer security actions and about uh, antivirus software. Okay, so just like always, do not make the content like I would say too much for you. I'm going to split it into two parts this time. So mainly there will be two videos. In this video, we are going to focus on security threats to understand them and the need for them. And we'll discuss mainly two types of attacks. Okay, we will see the passive and active attacks today in this video. Okay, next we will discuss the different like types of threats. Okay, so here we'll go. We start with like what is security threats. Okay, like always we start with the definitions, we understand the context again. Okay, even that I was introducing in the start, but what I want to learn now is that a security threat is anything that can cause harm, like I mentioned, to your computer or your system. Okay, so this is mainly the definition in short. Okay, and this harm, like we mentioned, it could affect your data, your privacy, or how your system works mainly. So the goal here is that of computer security in general is to prevent these threats, okay, or reduce their impact as much as possible. So this is the overall idea. And all security controls are designed with three core pillars of information security in mind. Okay, so this is what we discussed already last time. We discussed the CIA triad, and I told you that C star stands for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. Okay, and so we discussed them last time. So confidentiality is like that data should be accessible to users who are authorized to see it. It's not like for everyone, only for those who are having, I would say, the authorization to see that data are able to see it. So in practice, this mainly involves, like we discussed last time, that in order to access to some content, you need to go through authentication, to have some permissions, or to go through access control and so on. Okay, the second one is the I for integrity, and integrity ensures that data is not like altered. Okay, it's not like tampered. Okay, and so the idea here is that when integrity is compromised, the data may still be accessible, but it can no longer be trusted. So any modification, any changes or on like the data are like related to the integrity problem. Okay, can be available, but it can be like not the same like the message that I am delivering to you. The message is completely changed. Or some of the content is changed as well. So this is a problem related to integrity. Otherwise, the last one is, or the third pillar is availability. And availability like ensures that systems and data are accessible to authorized users when they need them. Whenever you want to access to that information, it must be available for you. Okay, a system that is secure but unavailable, like it's still considered as a failure. So there is no need for the system that if I need it, it's not like it's showing errors or it's not like available for me. Okay, and now mainly these are the three like pillars that we try to secure, like I'm saying, our system. We try to make sure that our system like ensures confidentiality, ensures integrity, and ensures availability. Okay, and mainly now, like, let's look at what can happen, let's say, when security threats are ignored. Okay, so now one common consequences is back-to-back attacks, where attackers keep exploiting some weakness. Okay, so your system might have some weakness, and these weakness, like we said, can be the entry points of some attackers. So this can lead to the loss of like confidential data, and you mentioned that confidentiality is extremely important. This also can lead to identity thief, okay, or even to damage or related to data integrity. Okay, so this is going to harm, I would say, the core principles that we are discussing so far. So in some cases, the entire like computing system can be even damaged, okay? Or it can even become, I would say, worst or unusable, okay? So ignoring security threats does not just like cause some what we call technical problems. It can have serious, I would say, personal and organizational like consequences, okay? So mainly this is the idea. Now, when it comes to security attacks, okay, we need to understand the bigger picture, like I say. So in the big picture, when we talk about attacks, there are like different types of attacks, but let's discuss the main types. Okay, there are two main types of attacks, which are the active attacks and the passive attacks. Okay, now for the active attacks, like shown in this table here in the left side. So what we have for the active attacks, like there are for sure for each type, there are, I would say, some cases, okay, different cases. And this is what we are going to discuss, okay? But let's start with defining and understanding the context, okay? So in active attacks, like the attacker actively, I would say, interferes with the system or with the data. Okay, so what can happen? There is a first type, there is interruption. Okay, and so the attacker is here, and this is like, for example, system or user A and B, and the attacker is here, so it's interrupting, I would say. Okay, so it in this case, the data is becoming not available. Okay, so this mainly like let's imagine or discuss about this unavailability of data, like a server, let's say, crash. Okay, or there is another scenario where we have a denial of server attack. Okay, so this mainly like affects the availability of the system. Okay, so this is related to the interruption. Okay, someone is interrupting the system, and sorry, and this interruption is like leading to these problems of availability and affecting the availability of your system. Okay, so if the system is becoming unavailable, so it's again like here we're discussing the three principles. So the availability principle here is like targeted. Okay, there is also the interception. Okay, in active attacks we can discuss about interception. So here, like, the message is delivered from A to B. The attacker, which you see here, is like intercepting. So interception happens when the attacker here is gaining kind of what we call unauthorized access to the data. So this data is supposed to circulate from A to B in a confidential way. No one else is supposed to see this data. But here what we see is that C is gaining this unauthorized access to the data. Okay, here we will see many examples, but one of them is the eavesdropping that we'll discuss like so far. So it's mainly like about the network communication issues, which affects, I would say, the confidentiality of the circulated information. Okay, so this is mainly for active attacks, and they are usually like cause like visible damage. Okay, so we can see this damage usually, and they are easier to detect than passive attacks. Okay, so this is mainly for active attacks. Moving now for the second type, which is the passive attacks. Okay, in passive attacks, now the attacker does not uh, disrupt the system directly. Okay, so it's not like here, it's directly he is like interrupting, or here directly there is some interception. No, here it's a different, like I would say, philosophy. So what happens is that instead the attacker, they observe, okay, or I would say secretly manipulate data. Okay, so how this can happen? Mainly we can think of modification. So modification means that the data is changed without authorization. Okay, so if like user A is sending something to user B, now this attacker C is going to receive it and then modify it and send it to B. Okay, so this is mainly for modification. Okay, so the data is changed without any authorization. Let's take an example. For example, altering a message or database record. Okay, this is very common, and this mainly affects the integrity. Okay, so whenever we're discussing an example, we need to make sure that from that three pillars, which one is affected. So the modification affects the integrity because there is a change and modification in the content, which is not supposed to be. If I'm sending you a message, my message must be delivered as it is. Okay, not like there is someone like maybe using some AI and changing my videos to you, for example. Okay, this will be like affecting integrity. Okay, and next there is the other, like I would say, type, maybe it's called fabrication. So fabrication is like we have, no, it's not like the message from A to B is at some point modified. Okay, no, here A is not sending any message. Okay, but C is pretending sending messages from A to B. Okay, so the idea here is that fabrication mainly occurs when fake data, I mean, or messages are created and inserted into the system. Okay, one example here is like maybe we can think of like fake emails or false transactions also. So, and this, if we think of the three like pillars that we discussed so far, so this mainly affects like integrity and trust. Okay, so passive attacks are here in this context very hard to detect. They are even harder to detect than active attacks. The main reason is that the system may continue to function normally. Okay, so here are the different two types of attacks, and it's very important to distinguish. Like, try to take notes if you want while watching the video, so this will make it easy for you. Now, let's see this table, and again with the two types of attacks. The table here mainly compares like passive attacks to active attacks and active attacks side by side, so we can see them here. And the first row mainly is what the attacker does, okay? And in active attacks, so mainly the attacker attempts to learn or I would say make use of information, okay, from the system, but does not affect the system resources, okay. In passive attacks, what happens that the attacker tries to alter, okay, system resources or affect how the system operates, okay. So for the second row now is how the attack mainly happens. Now, so for the active attacks, they often like involve um, uh, eavesdropping or monitoring, okay, communications, like such, for example, we have listing of data being transmitted or over the network, okay? And for the passive attacks, they involve modifying the data stream or creating a false, I would say, data stream, okay? Now for the third row, it's mainly the goal of the attacker, okay? So the main goal of of an active attack is to obtain information that is being transmitted, okay. And the goal for the second like type for passive attack is to damage the system or let's say disrupt its normal operation, okay. The fourth one now is types, I would say, and categories, okay. So active attacks have two main types, okay. We have the release of message content and the traffic analysis. So passive attacks are now divided into four categories, okay? So we have the replay, we have the masquerade, we have modification of messages, and the denial of service, okay? So all these, I would say, types and categories we are going to see with examples, okay? And here, like this diagram, illustrates an eavesdropping attack, okay, which is a type of passive attack, like we just mentioned, okay. And here at the top, we see the original communication, okay. So here the communication is mainly between whom? Between the computer user and the server, okay. And this communication now is happening through the internet, okay. So what mainly happens is that in a normal like situation, the user, what will happen, he's going to connect to the internet. Here, for example, connects like to the server, let's say, and data flows directly, okay, and is going to like circulate or in a secure way. It's very important to say, so it's in a very secure and direct way from the computer user to the service, and from the server, sorry, to the computer user as well, okay. So the thing now is that at like this is in the normal situation, okay. So the user connects to the server, the data is going just to flow very normally, like we always connect to any server, and the communication is happening between us and the server. Now, what happens is in the case of this passive attack, the eavesdropping attack, okay, we see the hacker here, okay? So the hacker here secretly listens, okay, to the communication while like it is in transit. So here the attacker is going to be present to listen secretly, okay? This is why it's called passive. He's not taking any action. He's just there and silent and listening, okay? So notice that the attacker here does not interrupt the connection, like I mentioned, and does not change any data. He's just listening, okay? So this makes the, I would say, eavesdropping attack hard to detect, and it mainly compromises like confidentiality, okay? So this is the passive attack. And now again with passive attack, what we have here, the second type of attacks, which is the example of replay attack, okay? So here replay attack is the type of, like again, it's an active attack now. So we are switching, sorry, from passive attacks to active attacks. Okay, and the difference now is that when someone is passive, means he's not doing anything, he's just there. When someone is active, means he's taking an action. Okay, so try to memorize it like this. So this attacker now here, instead of being passive, he's going to be active. Okay, so what we have here, we have the sender and the server network. Okay, and what we have, the attacker here capture the message while like the message is like being transmitted from the sender to the network, and like he's going to retransmit this message with some modification. He's going, like I said, to take an action. Maybe he will use the wrong time, like or he will go like so this is mainly happening without any authorization from the sender or the server. Okay, so this kind of replay attacks can lead to what we call unauthorized actions, like for example repeated transactions or false requests, for example, and they mainly affect the integrity and the authenticity of the system. Okay, so still with the active attacks. Okay, so active attacks, here we are discussing a different or is it the same? Oh, just a second. Okay, so just I was double checking. There is no issue. Mainly, I'm just duplicating the same slide twice. Okay. Now let's discuss. We move forward and discuss the different like the next like type of attacks. Okay. So this image, like what we can see, is what is known as the masquerade attack. Okay, and this is also known as the impersonation attack. Okay, here we see like our like two users. We have Jack, who is a legitimate user, and Atkinson, like he is the intended receiver, okay, of the message that Jack is going to send through the like internet or other like communications. Okay, what will happen now is the problem is occurring is this hacker. Okay, so the message now that um, Atkinson receives is not actually from Jack. Okay, this mainly that this attacker is sending the message. Okay, the message is from attacker that appears like to be from Jack. So not Jack is not sending anything. So this hacker is sending a message. Okay, so this is the idea. Instead, like instead of the original person, we find that the hacker sends a message that like appears to be from Jack, but Jack didn't send this message. Okay, because the message looks legitimate, what will happen? The receiver, which is Atkinson, like he may trust this message, okay, and act on it. He's not going to feel that this message is not from Jack, okay. So this is the idea of masquerade attacks, and they are very dangerous because they break authentication and trust, okay, and they can lead to unauthorized access or actions, okay. So next, now this image shows again an active attack, and this time it's called modification of messages. So what we see here is that here is the sender. Okay, the sender is going to send a message to the receiver. While this message is traveling, I would say, through the like network, what will happen is that an attacker is like here to interrupt it, to interrupt this message. So instead of like having this like for the message, instead of like just reading the message, the attacker now is not going to just read, he's going to take an action. Like I said, this is an active attack, so it's not only passive reading. No, what action he's going to take is that he's going to get like to change or to modify, like the name is mentioning, modification of messages. So attacker is going to change or modify the content of the message. So the receiver is going to receive not the original message, is going to receive the altered version, the altered message, okay, believing that it is the original one sent by the sender, okay. And so imagine like these are like, for example, the sender is maybe the boyfriend of the receiver, just saying I love you, and this attacker is going to completely change the content, say I hate you, for example. So this is going to create a lot of problems. So these changes are like the problem, the receiver believes that it's sent by the sender. So this type of attack mainly like compromises integrity because the data can no longer be trusted, okay. So this is the idea of modification of messages. Next, we have the last now type we're going to discuss for this video is the denial of service. Okay, so this image shows a denial of service, or called DOS, okay, attack. What happens here is that the attack, or like the attacker, in this attack, the attacker disrupts the system, the service provider by a service. So legitimate users in this case, like for example, we have Halim here, try to access the server normally, okay, but the attacker here shown by Alex, okay, sends excessive or malicious requests, okay, to the server, okay, here. So the idea is that, or as a result, okay, the server becomes overloaded or becomes unavailable, okay, and the legitimate users here cannot access, I would say, to the service, okay, because Alex is in this case disrupting the service provider, sending lots of requests, so that the normal or typical user is not able to access to the servers. So this kind of like attacks, or I would say the denial of attack, mainly target availability of the system, one of the core like pillar of the CIA triad that we discussed so far, okay. So mainly this is all for this video. In the next video, we are going to talk about how attackers break into the systems, okay? So thank you so much. See you in the next video.